So for more reaction, we now welcome to studio Jeremy Saltan, a political advisor from the Yamina party. Jeremy, thank you so much for being here. We know it's a pretty busy time in the world of politics right now. And of course, there have been so many twists and turns, so many convoluted different hurdles and obstacles like we heard in that report. Now, talk to us about the fact that there are reports as soon as tomorrow at noon, this mandate could be handed over and President Ruven Rivlin might hear that in fact Yair Lapid can form this change government. Give us your insights. Is that likely to happen?
I really hope that it does. Unfortunately, I do not think that it will. I'm a veteran of these coalition negotiations, and unfortunately, there's a situation when there is a deadline. Well, a number of different parties decide that until they get closer to that deadline, they don't want to go ahead and budge. That deadline to announce a new government is, of course, Wednesday at midnight, so that still gives us a little over 48 hours for the parties to go ahead and jump up ladders and then, quietly ask for someone to help them down. So, look, we'll do whatever it is that we can to help people get out of their trees and down to the earth so that we can go ahead and form a government again. Because, the businesses out there that are struggling, they really need us to go ahead and pass a state budget. The police that wants to get back to being able to make sure there's law and order in this land wants to make sure that there is, of course, a state budget and a government. And, of course, all of our children who spent the last year on Zoom want to make sure that we have a government with a real plan in terms of education of what needs to be done so that we're able to deal with those gaps and just open up a new chapter in the Israeli nation's future.
As this new chapter, as you call it, is likely to be open, talk to us about the right-wing supporters of Yamina who are feeling betrayed right now. They feel they wanted a right-wing government. They're not getting that. They're not happy with what they're seeing. They feel there's a stabbing in the back, so to speak. What is your answer to that?
Well, my answer to them is first to ask them two questions. Number one, what's your alternative? And number two, what are you afraid of? The alternative to what it is that we're doing is another election. And I ask people, if Netanyahu is not able to form a coalition in 4 straight elections, why would he be able to do so in a 5th one? Or, if we look at the polls, that'll send us to a 6th one. And when it comes down to, the fears that people have, we're going to have veto power to be able to stop any of the things that the ideological left tried to force upon the agenda of the government. And if they decide to press too hard, then, okay, we'll have to admit that it was a mistake. We'll go to elections, and Naftali Bennett will be prime minister. And that's not the worst thing, considering, of course, Naftali is a pretty right-wing guy.
People are concerned about a range of issues across the spectrum, those that are close to many people's hearts. Annexation, talking about extending Israeli sovereignty in certain areas, of course, talking about The Hague and its dealings with Israel and Israeli soldiers. What do you see as the biggest stumbling blocks between left and right in this coalition government? Briefly, please.
Well, it's going to have to depend on what the final coalition agreements say. But I do feel that people understand there's not going to be annexation and there's not going to be disengagement. Both sides are going to have to restrain themselves. And with, Benjamin Netanyahu as the opposition leader, I think that'll be the glue that keeps everyone in their coalition seats.
Jeremy Saltan, always appreciate your response and being here in studio. Thank you so much for your time.